Bianca Farmakis is the Australian's Content Director of Culture. And Bianca, I'm used to you writing about very highbrow art forms, the ballet, the opera, but you've become the Robert Irwin correspondent at the paper. How did that happen?
Well, aside from the fact that it's one of the most coveted positions, it really was down to a matter of who actually knows anything about dance in the office. And at the time, between gawking at the photos that came out of the finale for Dancing with the Stars, I was selected to do the honour.
Robert Irwin, the son of Stephen Terry Irwin, who's become famous to a new generation in Australia, probably through a Bonds ad campaign and I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here,
Yes.
has just won Dancing with the Stars US. Now, it's probably hard for us here in Australia to grasp how big a deal this is, right?
No, it is definitely. I mean, I think we had a Dancing with the Stars of our own. It was liked enough, but not enough to last the test of times, similar to shows like Maths that we know will possibly never die off from the airwaves. But in the US, it attracts massive audiences and it still has this kind of old school sort of appeal, whereas in the days of, your American and your Australian idols, people would vote in and pick their favourites and that would have such a determining factor. And Dancing with the Stars leverages that in the sense that judges will give their scores, usually out of 30. In the case of the finale, it was out of 90. And then we saw, particularly with Robert Irwin, he was slated to come second, but the second the audience votes were brought in, it actually swayed the decision and he, took the crown and he took the beloved and very iconic trophy of the disco ball.
What did you think of his dancing?
I actually think it was superb. In terms of technique and in terms of showmanship, for someone who genuinely went in with no sort of prior training or anything, he was incredible. Some of the dances, salsas, rumbas, tangos, they're not easy art forms. First and foremost, it's very difficult to dance on your own. It's harder to dance with a partner. And he brought such a charisma, such a showmanship, as we saw with the infamous Are You Gonna Be My Girl dance routine to the Jet song, which was just explosive. He has this steely gaze that even some of the best dancers of our generation of the world cannot necessarily just switch on. Like it's an amazing, bold and the beautiful type, seductive appeal. And it does make the difference between what is someone who's a technically good dancer and someone who is just a star. And he was. I mean, he leapt from the judges' table with a broken rib and managed to pull off a whole 90-second dance routine.
Did you get that sense with Robert Irwin that his partner Whitney Carlson was having to drag him around the floor?
Do you know what? Probably at the start, definitely. I mean, there's the balance between being extremely nervous and extremely, amateur at something. But she actually managed to bring out quite a unique range in him. And I think she sort of forced his limits in terms of knowledge and understanding of the craft, but also leveraged his physicality. I will probably mention this several times throughout this conversation, but he is uniquely buff and there is an inherent athleticism to him that she managed to choreograph around quite well. So there was a specific number where they did a more contemporary partner routine, so not your traditional ballroom, in which she it was for the dedication round, so he obviously dedicated the dance to his mum, Terry, and it was just this beautiful tableau of very slow and soft, supple movements, but all of which revolved around his upper body strength.
You're blushing.
I am blushing, and he's too young even for me.
Well, this is what I'm enjoying about it, actually, because the older women are used to feeling a bit weird about finding 21-year-olds attractive. But, how old are you?
I'm 28.
Yeah, so I'm thoroughly enjoying the fact that you are now also a creepy old lady.
I know. Well, this is the thing. I feel like also this was part of the reason I was allowed to write about it. But still, even then, there's a bit of a line that I feel like I'm crossing. Regardless, back to the dancing. There were just these beautiful moments within that contemporary dance where he was hoisting her above his head and just obviously she's doing the majority of the work, right? Like she's the one holding the leg up, performing the arabesques and making this what is an already exceptional image, just this photographic moment. And there were so many that came out of what he did. But it also just brought this beautiful range to him. And I think that's what's appealed to audiences with Robert off the stage. He has this emotional depth that I think has not ever been found disingenuous. I think he's quite I mean, the New York Times wrote an article this week saying he actually is that nice, and you've never heard a bad word about Robert Irwin, which clearly resonated on stage.
His social media is full of him pulling over his car in the African jungle to rescue a endangered something or other that's trying to crawl across the road. This is while he was on set for I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. He does seem to be a genuinely good and a nice person, highly intelligent, very thoughtful person. But he's also making conservation hot. Mm. This is the serious part of what Robert Irwin does, isn't it? Mm. He is obviously enjoying the fact that everybody else is enjoying him as a public figure, but he always brings it back to conservation.
Yes. And you know what? I think it makes him a very extremely rare breed of celebrity. So in terms of, your contemporary celebrity appeal, there's the trashy influencer or there's the very secretive A-lister that has a world of mystique around them. There's really no one in between. And when you look at the cross-section that is Robert Irwin's public profile, he is a man who loves animals, a man who wears Cuban heels on stage and performs in a shimmering vest, and a man who will talk excessively about photography. All of these things are not cool. All of these things are very sort of earnest and embarrassing, and yet he manages to distill them into something so alluring because he does have an exceptional level of knowledge in his field, and it shows. I mean, the family overall and their impact in conservation has been unparalleled in this country, which we know it's also a bit of an uphill battle, but that's for another episode. And I think something Australians don't know is that he was already very famous in America. So I grew up in the States, and within the US, we had a plethora of channels that Australia hadn't really had access to because they were kind of still on the standard cycle of, your 4 or 5 main things to watch. So we got drip-fed Steve Irwin and the Irwin family in the early 2000s, whereas in the US, they already had deals with Animal Planet. They were already massive celebrities over there. And I think we also take for granted in this country that our greatest cultural export is animals at the end of the day. Like, it is such a weird fascination. Snakes, all the marsupials, wildlife, they're things that the wider world finds absolutely enthralling. So you take it in that context. He was born, there was even a film special of his birth at Australia Zoo that was broadcast in the States that wasn't necessarily as big as it was here. I remember seeing that as a kid.
This is making it even more creepy that you find him attractive now.
Growing up with Robert Irwin. I was actually saying the last time I saw photos of him was when he had that bleach blonde bowl cut.
Poor kid. I think their mum might have been cutting their hair at some point.
Yeah, it's not a good look. The khaki to glittering suit pipeline was fantastic. But they also watched him in one of the most horrendous moments and the most tragic moments of the family's life, which is when Steve Irwin passed. So he was 2 years old in that moment, and the picture of that family and the tableau of Terry now assuming this single motherhood role, but also assuming this massive empire of what is a very ethical and very, virtuous sort of craft of conserving the planet and educating people about it. And then juggling 2 very young children and this reputation of Steve Irwin, who managed to engage a global audience in what was otherwise something that people didn't necessarily care about or only ever cared about when they were at a zoo for an hour or so. So I think that trajectory and having that kind of consciousness on a global stage so young, and then never having a scandal, never having any sort of stray away from that, built such an incredible atmosphere and an aura around him that made him so appealing. And what's funny now is the Dancing with the Stars segue really was one of the most incredible, I think, commercial opportunities on behalf of the show, because obviously they saw that 10 years prior his sister Bindi had entered and won, and they managed to convince him to come on.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about these big reality shows, isn't it? They're sometimes seen as a springboard for greater fame, greater celebrity. Bindi used her win quite strategically to bring attention back to the tourist operation in Australia and the conservation work. That's an opportunity potentially for Robert Irwin. But the other path for him is massive Hollywood stardom.
Yes.
Do you see him going there?
I wonder if he would do that, because he does seem quite fixated and aware of the impact he wants to make on the world. I think that's always been very consistent, and it's very uniquely consistent. Someone who started so young and has been in the public eye basically since literally since birth. I think it could follow the route of David Attenborough. Go on that whole sort of in-depth look at the planet around us and really build an environment around that. I do think, though, that it will be a massive possibility for him, because at the end of the day, he looks like a Ken doll, he has a brain, and he has such a gorgeous modern masculinity that I think a lot of people don't necessarily find in many celebrities overall. I mean, there's this kind of wave that we want that super hot, I bring it back to super hot again, but super hot man who is also smart and sensitive and aware of the world. But the fact that, one of his major campaigns has been promoting endometriosis awareness purely because of his sister. He has such a unique familial love, and that's something that really came out throughout the show as well. And I think a lot of people forgot about it. I mean, Robert Irwin was... The last time we heard of Robert Irwin was I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Don't know if that really made as much of a splash. But before that, it was the Bonds ad. And to see a 20-year-old Robert Irwin, who we all knew as that little boy in khakis and nappies, with a large snake draped around his shoulders, really just changed the image of him to the public. But it just wasn't, it wasn't salacious. There was something about him that made it so fine for both myself and women upwards of 30 years older than me stare in the office and think it's okay to put this on the front page.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like he's being exploited for his looks. He feels very much in control of it. And one of the funny things I thought about that Bonds campaign is that the reason everyone went, oh, wow, he's really handsome, was that he wasn't smiling.
Yes.
He has a very natural, huge, very goofy smile. When he's not smiling, he's a model.
Smouldering.
Yeah, he smoulders. He's stunningly good looking. It's very rare to see him not smiling, and that's what you say about his face while he's dancing. He's often not smiling but very composed. Yeah, we just need him to maybe smile less.
Yes, I know. I mean, there is that. There was that study a while ago that women are beautiful when they smile and men aren't, and I firmly believe that might be the case to this day.
Bianca Farmakis, thank you very much.
Thank you.